Chairman, I can confirm the meeting's now live.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Environment Advisory Group. I'm Councillor Stuart Gawley, portfolio holder for Climate Action, Recycling and Biodiversity, and chair of the Environment Advisory Group. I forgot where I was then for a second. Members joining me this evening are Caroline Culver, Councillors Caroline Culver, Joanne Stewart, and hopefully Martha Vickers. We may be expecting a few others online at some point as well. Some have given some apologies that they will be a little bit late. Following officers are in attendance to advise and support the meeting, and they are Kofi Ado-Giamfi, Service Lead for Climate Change, Jenny Graham, who's the Environment Delivery Manager, and Daniel Warren, who's the Waste Manager, also Joe Watt, Environment Delivery Officer, Elise Kinderman, who's the Team Leader for Minerals and Waste, and Stephen Shard and Thomas Radbourne, who are our clerk hosts and Zoom hosts, sorry. We're also expecting the following presenters to join us this evening, and they are Dave Matthews from the GM of Veolia West Berkshire, Mike Roberts from Vertigo, Mark Collins Thomas, CEO of EPI, and Nikki Coombe from Eco-Friends West Berkshire. Just a bit of housekeeping quickly. If we hear the evacuation alarm this evening, we must leave the building immediately. Please proceed via the safe emergency exit route, and please follow any instructions given by officers. We've got a fire exit at the back there to the right, and obviously we've got the front doors as well. The assembly point is the car park of the Dolphin Pub. If the lockdown alarm sounds, we will remain seated and await instructions from officers, and we will adjourn the meeting until such a time as it is safe to proceed. Good, excellent. If anyone got any questions on how we're going to run this evening so far? No? Good, cool. In that case, we'll move on to item 1 for the evening, and that is apologies. So we've received apologies from Councillors Richard Sumner, John Winstanley, who's the Service Director for Environment, and Owen Jeffrey. Councillor Stewart is subbing for Councillor Sumner. And I know that, like I said, we've had a couple of other apologies, or people say they'll be late this evening. I think Nick Carter, Councillor Nick Carter, who'll likely be joining online a bit later once he's finished work. So any other apologies from anyone? You heard anything? No. Cool. In that case, we'll move on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest at all? No, cool. No, that's just me. No, good. No declarations of interest. Item 3, moving swiftly on, is the minutes of the previous EAG open forum meeting held on the 29th of January 2024. Councillor Culver.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of points on the minutes. Do we have an action log for these meetings to make sure that anything in the minutes gets taken up and taken forward? So, for example, we were going to invite Rachel Hammond to come along to a parish climate meeting, and also somebody suggested inviting Action for River Kennet along to a future meeting as well.
We don't have an action log.
One must pull one together.
Okay, cool. No. So yes, we will pull one together though, I think, Caroline.
Thank you, Chairman.
Cool. Any other comments on minutes at all? No.
Will you be able to put forward a proposer and then a seconder?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose those minutes. I don't know if anyone, I don't think if anyone else was here. Oh, Caroline Culver. Happy to second it. Thank you very much. All those in favour? It's just me. Oh, Martha was here as well, so that's good. Good. Thank you very much, Martha. Just in time. It's all right.
If you wouldn't mind signing it.
Oh, is the date say 25th?
Beautiful pen, by the way.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you. Cool. Excellent. So that's the minutes approved, and we've obviously got the action to create and start generating that action log. which is good. Thank you for that. So we're moving on to item 4, which is the Veolia Sustainability Initiatives at Padworth Integrated Waste Facility. So I will hand over to Dave Matthews, who's the General Manager for Veolia West Berkshire, to take us through what's going on at Padworth, please.
Okay, thanks very much, Chairman. I'm going to try and share my screen very quickly. I just wanted to add very quickly as well, Ben Slater is on the call as an attendee. He tried to get as a panelist as well, but couldn't get on. So I'll just try and share my screen a second. Right. Now, I'm not very good with Zoom. We don't use Zoom at West Berks. So I will try. Does that look okay to you?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for the invite. My name is David Matthews. I'm the General Manager for the West Berkshire PFI contract. We collect and process all of the recycling and waste from West Berkshire. I've been asked along today to discuss the environmental and ecological enhancements that we've made at the Padworth site over the last few years, and a brief bit on the community work we've been doing over the last few years. So, quick summary then. So in summary, I was going to talk about the biodiversity action plan we have at Padworth, a small piece on the sustainability fund, which we have for annually in Veolia, and then some more technical stuff in and around the energy and water saving projects we've done at Padworth over the last few years. So I'm conscious that not everybody's been to Padworth before, so I just wanted to put up this aerial shot of Padworth and show you it's quite a substantial plot of land. So in the top right hand corner there you can see our in-vessel composting building, big green building. That's where we compost all of our green waste and food waste collected from the curbside. In the bottom left, the other large building is our materials recycling facility and our waste transfer station, where we process all of our curbside recycling and curbside black bag. The building in the middle with the white roof is our office building. And you can see in the middle there's a large parking area where we park all of our trucks. And to the right-hand side of the office is the Padworth HWRC, or Household Waste Recycling Centre. You can also see surrounding the site lots of areas of conservation interest. We have a large proportion of woodland down the base of the site, and we have a large surface water pond to the left-hand side of the MRF and transfer station. And around to the left, moving all the way around to the top of the site there, we have a large conservation area. That's a gravelled or basalt area. So that moves me on neatly to our biodiversity action plan. So the biodiversity action plan at Padworth is based around our biodiversity studies. So every year we do a biodiversity study on the site. Ours is due in April, assuming that the weather holds for us. From that survey, we get recommendations from the external specialists in relation to our habitat management and of our conservation areas, the regular maintenance of our surface water ponds, the regular maintenance of our woodland, what we can do in terms of encouraging wildflowers in our grassed areas. And what we do have, and what we're quite proud of, is 2 quite rare species that live on the site. On the left-hand side there, you can see that small beetle. That is the alder leaf beetle. That's a nationally rare beetle, and we manage our conservation area specifically as a habitat for that beetle. It has other benefits when we manage the conservation area, but primarily we're trying to encourage that beetle's habitats. And then we have our bats. So we have a large colony of pipistrelle bats, which again are nationally rare. They live or roost in the woodland to the bottom of the site, and they hunt over the surface water ponds. So we maintain our woodland and our ponds specifically as bat habitat. We also have a wide range of other species on the site because of the work we do protecting these two species, everything from wildfowl on the pond, amphibians in the pond. We have red kites and kestrels and bank voles and field mice and 60 plus invertebrate species in the conservation area from the last survey. So we do a lot of conservation work to try and encourage the mosaic of habitats, which improves the wildlife diversity on the site. So moving on from that, just wanted to quickly share with you some of the work we've done in the community and continue to do in the community. So annually we have our sustainability fund. We have a £5,000 fund every year, which we give out to sustainability and biodiversity projects. You can see the list in the middle of the slide is who we supported in 2023. There's everything from school sustainability projects to volunteering projects to school gardens and conservation area support. As long as it's got sustainability and biodiversity at its core, we're happy to support it. The new project for 2024 will be rolling out in the summer. There'll be a comms pack that will be shared with WBC from our central comms team in relation to applications for the Sustainability Fund. And we're very much looking forward to seeing this year's crop of projects. The next thing I wanted to quickly just touch on is our Orchards for Schools project. So every year we support schools with planting orchard trees in their grounds. We've had 11 schools apply for trees this year, which is rolling out in March this month indeed. There's a nice picture in the corner there of myself and the chairperson receiving the first batch of trees that is going out to schools, and they started going out last week. Lastly, I just wanted to mention our CSR volunteering week that we did at Solhampstead and Ufton Primary School. So we had 12 volunteers within the workforce that spent one day each at the school during the week, supporting them in creating an outdoor classroom, which was a really interesting project and really worthwhile to get the kids out of the classroom and being educated under the canopy of trees that we built the facility under. So really pleased with some of those. So moving on to our energy and water saving projects. So slightly more technical stuff, but over the last few years, you can see we've put together lots of projects, saving energy, saving water, trying to make the site as efficient as possible, reducing our carbon footprint on the site as much as possible. And over the last few years, we've invested over £400,000 in these projects, you can see on the screen. I'm going to dig into a few of them in more detail in the coming slides, but suffice to say, they're all really worthwhile projects and have saved really good amounts of electricity and carbon ultimately. So digging in a little deeper, so we've got our LED project. The LED project has been going on for a number of years at Padworth. It's a substantial site. We have a lot of lights on the site. We have people on site at 5 in the morning and at 10 at night. So we use a lot of lighting. We've been replacing the lights over the last few years. Currently, we're up to 203 lights replaced, exterior and interior lights, with an investment of 119,000 and an annual saving of 166,000 kilowatt hours. So it's really worthwhile doing for us. The carbon savings annually as well, 141 tonnes, and that's a continual annual saving. So as we go through the contract, we're saving year on year. There are more to do, but I'll talk about those later in the slides. Next thing I wanted to talk about was the Power Perfector project. It was a really interesting project. Again, you can see the picture of the Power Perfector there. It's a small piece of equipment, no bigger than a kitchen toaster, but it has a huge impact on optimizing the voltage that comes into the site. So what it does is it actively optimizes the incoming electrical voltage. So traditionally, when you have incoming voltage, there's variation, there's peaks and troughs, within that incoming voltage. And what this machine does is it optimizes and reduces or removes those fluctuations in variance. And those fluctuations effectively are wastage, whether they're wastage higher or lower than your need. And what this machine does is it optimizes the need to the exact amount that we use on site. At any given time, we're not using a kilowatt more or a kilowatt less than we should be. The potential savings of that are 173,000 kilowatt hours annually, which is 8% of our usage in the IVC, and a potential carbon saving of 147 tonnes. So for such a small piece of equipment, it's a remarkable outcome. Going from something fairly small to something slightly larger, our water borehole project. So the IVC, the in-vessel composting plant, is a very high water user, between 15 and 20,000 cubic meters of water a year is used in the process. So in 2023, we looked at how we can reduce that mains water usage. Obviously, with every cubic meter of mains water usage, there is a carbon footprint. So we decided to look at putting our own borehole in. And it was a really interesting project. We drilled 75 meters down into the ground, 40 meters of which was in the chalk. There's a fantastic aquifer under the Thames Valley. It's called the Seaford Chalk Aquifer, which produces a vast volume of water. And we could pump, if we wanted to, 200 cubic meters a day. So it's 2.3 litres per second. It's quite a spectacular piece of equipment. And what we're attempting to do is remove the IVC entirely from mains water usage, saving roughly 5.2 tonnes of carbon every single year we remove that usage. So really interesting project, really worthwhile as well. We got our drilling license back in July 22. We started drilling in 23, and we're expecting our extraction approval license in April 24. So by the time we get to 2025, we should be on zero usage for mains water. It's a really long-term project with really long-term gains for the site. Really great. Moving on. So this is our overall picture. So Padworth site is a big energy user, as you would expect, but all of our projects are adding up, and they continue to add up. You can see there, since 2022, we've had dramatic reductions in the usage of our electricity in kilowatt hours, and with the associated carbon savings as well, which is great to see. In terms of water, again, significant reductions in water usage, which is mains water usage, again, with the associated carbon savings. So we're all heading in the right direction in terms of annual usage of water and electricity. Which brings me on neatly to how do we become fit for the future? So fit for the future, the upcoming projects. So as I said earlier about the LEDs, the last of the internal processing site LEDs will be changed this summer to LEDs. That means every building in the processing unit, as well as the externals in the processing, will be LEDs, which is a really great stage to be at for such a large site. It's taken a couple of years, but it is a substantial site, as I said earlier. Really looking forward to seeing the additional savings there as well in the MRF and waste transfer station. There would be associated kilowatt hour savings and associated carbon savings. Again, it's roughly another 80 or so lights in those two buildings. So there, effectively, we will only have the office, which is not on LEDs. So that will be planned in the future. The next two projects there you can see on the slides are two projects we're working with WBC. So the solar panels on the site roofs. And you saw from the shot of the site from above, we've got substantial roof space, particularly on the IVC and the MRF buildings. And we're working and looking at commercial discussions and feasibility stage with WBC in relation to putting solar panels on all those roofs, which would be a fantastic project. Those talks will be carrying on throughout 2024. And we're also looking at HVO fuel trials. So HVO being hydro-treated vegetable oil, recycled or primary vegetable oil. Either way, it produces a lot less emissions than diesel. So again, we're at the commercial stage, discussions and feasibility stage with WBC, looking at how we can potentially roll that out across part of the fleet, all of the fleet, just the mobile plant, parts of the fleet and the mobile plant. There's varying different versions of what we can look at there. So those two projects are going to be talked about and discussed and worked through throughout 2024, and hopefully we'll be fitter for the future when we get there. That is the end of my short presentation. Is there any questions?
Thank you. Thanks very much, Dave. Much appreciated. Any questions? Councillor Vickers.
I'm looking over there, but it's quite far away, so you're closer over here. Thank you very much for that presentation, Dave. That was really interesting. I've been fortunate enough to visit the site and was very impressed by what I saw there as regards the waste management, but I don't think I had any idea about this aspect of the site. So it's really interesting to hear what you're saying. I suppose I was really interested to know whether any of the things that you were doing, would they be relevant to any other sites or any, within the council? Can we sort of take some of those on board and maybe use them with other departments? I can't think.
Yeah.
Of anything.
Yeah, absolutely, councillor. Yeah. So back in 2021, late 21, early 22, we had an energy audit done. So Veolia has got some really good technical teams in R&D, and they did an energy audit on the site. So the majority of our projects that we've discussed and talked about today came from that energy audit. So I mean, there's nobody's stopping anyone from West Berkshire asking those people to do the energy audits for them as well, and they will provide the same details they did for us, which were, well, brilliant, to be fair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Caroline Culver. So I can just see your hand there, sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks very much, David, for that. It was really, really interesting. Is the long-term intention that your two sites in the district will become carbon neutral? And then the other question I was going to ask is, with the solar panel project and the HVO project, is this something that West Berkshire Council is investing in for the long term, or is this something that Veolia are funding?
So in terms of your first question, sorry, you're going to have to answer the first question again. Apologies, I forgot.
Yeah, no, that's fine, David. Don't worry. Yeah, I was just wondering if your long-term plan is to become carbon neutral. Yeah. Yeah.
So Veolia's plan is, yes, as a business, as a global business, we have quite strong targets in relation to that, and we would be driven centrally by those. And you're right. Yes, there are targets for us to achieve. And carbon neutrality is definitely high on the agenda for Veolia as a whole, and for the West Berkshire contract. Yeah, absolutely. In relation to the other two projects, maybe Kofi would be better answering that question. I mean, we're working in partnership with Kofi on those two projects.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, indeed. So on those two projects, the council will be providing the funding. And on the solar in particular, we've been successful in getting the administration to allocate capital funding. The exact details I'll be very happy to share with you, Councillor Culver, offline.
Great. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And with the HVO fuel, similarly, we are working around the costings to see whether the cost-benefit analysis justifies us investing in it. But if the numbers work, Councillor Stuart-Gawley is very keen that we move forward with it because of the environmental savings anticipated.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you.
No problem.
Cool. Thank you very much, Councillor Culver. Any other questions? I thought I saw one more hand online, unless.
Chairman, and Jo Watt had her hand raised and she's now a panelist in the room. So Jo.
Ah, cool. Thank you. Do you have a question, Jo? I don't know if she can hear her. Ooh. Did you have a question, Jo? No.
Oh, yes. Apologies. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I was just having a few difficulties. It was more of a comment rather than a question for Dave. And that's Dave. In my previous role in the countryside team, I've been working with the Greener Greenham group, who were lucky enough to receive £500 from Veolia. And I met with them last week regarding projects that they're using that money for, and they are very, very grateful. So it's just to say that that scheme is making a real difference to community groups who are working on things like litter picking, tree planting, carrying out some really great work. So that grant is very much appreciated and is being put into action within West Berkshire. So it's fantastic. And also the trees project, we ran something similar a couple of years ago for our schools, and it went down extremely well. So I'm sure you'll have a similar response and feedback from our schools. So just to say congratulations on those schemes, because they're extremely worthwhile and well received.
Thank you very much. Yeah, they are brilliant. Yeah, there's no question. So if Greener Greenham want to reapply this summer, yeah, really good group of people.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Yeah.
Smashing. Thank you very much. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I will, because it's from my point of view, it's a nice positive statement. We've only very recently discovered the area around Padworth, because it's one of those places where you go, I'm just going to go and I'm going to dump my rubbish, and then you leave. And we found I won't name any names, but a local hostelry. And actually the walk around the site is absolutely amazing. And we've taken lots of family and friends there as well. So, and in fact, I took my parents, and my mum spent ages trying to spot voles. I don't know if you have water voles, but she was desperately
on the canal. There are, yeah, on the canal. Yeah, that's not specifically our site though, so I couldn't claim that, I'm afraid. Yeah.
Okay, but I think around that area, and I think people don't perhaps realise, they just think of it as somewhere to go and dump your rubbish. So I think I'm becoming more and more impressed, shall we say, with the area around it. So thank you for the work that you do.
No problem.
I think this is the good thing to plug the success of the soil conditioner giveaway we had a couple of weekends ago, is it does bring people to the site perhaps that wouldn't ordinarily use it. So it's it is a good site. Having been there a few times, obviously being from the west of the district, it's not where I would go to utilise for household recycling, but having been there a few times now, it's a great facility, and it's one that we're lucky to have on our doorstep, really. So thank you to you and the team. David, any other questions from around the room or online? Kofi?
Thank you, Chair. Just also to note my thanks from the officer side to Veolia. We do have our commercial conversations, but as a contractor, it's been a fantastic partnership, and they often take the long-term view. So as you can see from the presentation, some of the projects such as the borehole drilling, you need to think long-term to invest the tens of thousands that they are investing in it. And for example, if in future the asset reverts to the council, it will be an asset that the whole district will benefit from. So just celebrating Team Veolia for the fantastic work.
Thank you, Kofi.
Chairman, can I just quickly intervene? I've just heard from Susan Millington from Lockdown Woods, and she would also like to pass on her thanks to David and his colleagues for the funds that you've given for the Lockdown Woods and also the Friends of the Earth corridor project that they're working on. So just to echo what Jo has said, people are very grateful for that funding and making very good use of it. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much, Councillor Corver. That's great to hear that people are making use of it. And when does the new scheme open again, David? Just so we can plug it.
It's in the summer, May 24 reopens. There'll be a comms pack which will come to Kofi and his team for distribution. So to any councillors that want it, and it's an application online on the Veolia website.
Marvellous. So I think that's probably something for us to make sure all members are aware of these schemes, so we can make the most out of them and really utilise them across West Berkshire. So thank you again, David, for your time this evening. And we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Cool. So that takes us over to item 5, which is over to Mike Roberts and Mark Collins Thomas. Sorry, apologies. To talk us through around the proposed advanced conversion and recovery facility at Field Quarry. So I'll hand over to you folks.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kofi, for the invitation here. We have some slides. So before we move on from the introductory side, that is a conveyor belt feeding a hopper, which feeds our pyrolysis system. So next slide, please. So EPI is a UK-based technology company, and it has some technology that we call pure pyrolysis. So what is pyrolysis? It's when organic matter is superheated in the absence of oxygen, so you get a thermochemical breakdown. Our outputs are a high-quality fuel gas and a solid carbon char. This is not incineration. I think everybody will remember from their chemistry at school that you need oxygen to burn stuff. So there's no burning, there's no incineration, and therefore there are no emissions from the process, which is obviously crucial when we come to consider climate change. Process also has low noise levels, very little odour, and importantly, it's flexible, it's controllable, and it's modular. So those are all important facets. So next slide, please. And that is a single module. So that's a kiln, effectively. So a single kiln takes about 8,000 tonnes of feedstock per annum. Our typical installations are a series of 6 modules. So generally, we are working with waste feedstocks, refuse-derived fuel that could come from municipal waste or commercial and industrial waste. But we can also treat sustainable biomass, agricultural waste, forestry waste, and so on. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Just on the next slide, you'll see this is indicative of the external plant that we have. So there's kind of gas cleanup and other equipment there. So the main pyrolysis units are internal, and then there's other equipment external. So we recently, next slide, please. We recently got involved in a project called Hydrogen BECCS, BECCS being bioenergy, carbon capture and storage. And Hydrogen BECCS is a program within the government's net zero innovation portfolio. And the overriding aim of the program is to produce hydrogen, which people probably know is the kind of the latest kind of energy vector that has been talked about with great enthusiasm, but whilst drawing down atmospheric carbon. So those are the 2 things that we have to do through this project. This may seem a niche kind of interest, but when you look at the Climate Change Committee that advises UK government, they have within their forward look, they're anticipating that Hydrogen BECCS produces 60 terawatt hours of hydrogen, whilst capturing 36 million tonnes of CO2 every year by the time we get to 2050. And we do now have to remove carbon from the atmosphere as well as reducing the emissions going into the atmosphere. So we at EPI delivered a successful feasibility study, and we were successful in being awarded £5 million from the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero for the demonstration phase. And this is due to be delivered at the back end of this year and into 2025 in Great Blakenham in Suffolk. So the next slide will show, and it's a bit complicated, and I won't be asking you any questions on this one. But so if you're starting from the left, so we've got the feedstock coming in from the top box. So what we don't want in the feedstock is any minerals or aggregates or glass or metals. So we want stuff that is organic and can effectively be decomposed under the intense heat. So the first piece is we produce the gas, as aforementioned, and the carbon char. So that's our core process, the pure pyrolysis process. And the bit that we call pure pyrolysis refined, which we delivered for H2 BECCS, follows on. So the next stage is where we effectively isolate a methane-rich gas. And that methane can be potentially put to a gas grid, which is also being looked to be decarbonised, or it can be converted to different types of liquid fuel. We can also produce electrical energy either from the first gas or from the methane. The next stage is the conversion to the hydrogen, where the methane is split into its constituent parts, which is hydrogen and solid carbon. So at that stage, so this is how far the hydrogen BECCS project goes up to this stage. So the main outputs being, as I say, a high purity hydrogen and the carbon black. So we now have carbon black sitting alongside the carbon char, and I'll come back to those a bit later. We can add in a final process where we convert the hydrogen into what's called bio-naphtha, which is a precursor for liquid fuels. So that's all the different stages, and we can effectively stop at any of those stages. So we've got good flexibility on the types of energy output we can produce. Next slide, please. So in terms of the hydrogen BECCS scheme and the pure pyrolysis refined, for every ton of feedstock we put in, this is what we can get out. So it's 164 kilograms of hydrogen, 100 kilograms of the carbon char alongside 520 kilograms of carbon black. Within those two elements of solid carbon, we capture around 2 tons of CO2. Now, everybody's probably heard of carbon capture, and most of it is capturing carbon in the form of CO2, which you then need to effectively pipe underground and store in perpetuity, make sure it never leaks. We have carbon capture where you can hold it in your hand. So it's a very different type of carbon capture. And the whole process, even assuming we use grid electricity for our parasitic energy requirements, captures 3/4 of a ton of CO2 for every ton of material inputted. So it's a significant net negative technology. So we are drawing down carbon from the atmosphere. And the way that's done is any of the biogenic material within the waste has effectively been grown recently, either in the form of trees or so it's paper, wood, and other items in there are all part of that short-term carbon cycle. So it's effectively removal from the atmosphere. Carbon char is most likely to go into the construction industry. So the construction industry are looking at reducing their carbon footprint, so they can replace other feedstock into construction materials such as asphalt, concrete, building blocks, and so on and so forth. The carbon black is traditionally has been used in the tire industry, but it's all from fossil fuel sourcing. It's also used in printing, it's used in paints and so on, but increasingly, if you can get to a certain standard of carbon black, it's used in battery and other renewable energy technologies. So it's a very interesting material. So whilst those are byproducts, they're very useful products which offset other fossil fuel based products. If we go to the next slide, please. This was a graph that was produced by Arup as part of our feasibility study. And again, it's summing up the total CO2 captured, which is the tallest bar there, the net CO2 sequestered, and then it's got a split between the biogenic CO2 and the non-biogenic CO2. And that's based on a typical assumption on a commercial and industrial waste stream. Now, of course, if you used a sustainable biomass or forestry residues, all of the carbon captured would be biogenic. And you can see we've got a tiny bit of CO2 emitted on the third column from the left, but it's very small compared to the amount we're actually capturing. Next slide, please. So why are we here? We're here because we have a project which has just gone in for planning at Thiel Quarry. Most of you will no doubt know the site, albeit as you drive past, you don't really see a great deal. But if we go on to the next slide, we'll see it in a greater detail. Hadley Skip Hire is actually the white building at the top. So that's a materials recycling facility, a smaller version of what you've just seen Viola talking about at Padworth, but it's for commercial and industrial clients rather than municipal waste. Euroloo is rather, it's actually open storage, and I think it's a Portaloo company, so in case that was raising questions. We've chosen this site because it's got an existing waste consent for, I think it's 100,000 tonnes of waste. But it makes sense for us to co-locate with an existing business because we can take feedstock from Hadley's, which effectively saves that material going back onto the public highways. So it's a very, very efficient place for us to locate. Next slide, please. So this shows the plan that is in for planning, and we've effectively got two buildings which face onto a central courtyard here, and they're effectively mirror images. So it's two pretty identical buildings. Where the blue label is the waste hall. So feedstock comes into that area. It's all dealt with within the building. There's no feedstock dealt with outside. You can see then 2 rows of kind of greyish blobs. Those are the pyrolysis units, which you saw a photograph of earlier. And here we've got 6 in each hall. So we've effectively got a double set of our kind of standard installation. And then you can see the various items of plant outside as shown in the previous photo. Next slide, please. And this is what it's going to look like. So it may not strike you as looking like a typical waste facility, and that's because it's not going to be a typical waste facility. We call it an advanced conversion and recovery facility, and it's about treating waste as a resource. And it's about showing that we are a society that values everything that we produce, and we're going to get the most out of it. So we think it needs to feel and look different to a traditional waste facility. However beautifully they may run, and I have to say Veolia are doing some impressive work at Padworth. We too are into biodiversity. We've actually got quite a tight site here, but we are adding in things like the green walls there, which you can see, and we are making the site work pretty hard. The buildings will be covered in PV, so we will be doing from the outset what Veolia are talking about on their sites. So it's a sustainable facility, but it's really the magic that's happening inside that's the important thing. In terms of investment for West Berkshire, it's a round number, I know, but that represents about £100 million worth of investment. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of having an advanced conversion recovery facility? So any waste that's coming to us, and it's pre-treated waste from the likes of Hadley's, it avoids any landfilling or incineration of residual waste, both of which are significant emitters of greenhouse gases. And that has been recognised now by UK government, and the fact that incinerators are being introduced into the UK energy trading scheme in 2028. So there'll be a significant additional cost of incineration from 2028 onwards, and just reflecting the amount of carbon it emits to atmosphere. We're producing useful carbon byproducts, which avoids emissions from traditional manufacturing routes. And we are drawing down carbon from the atmosphere through BECCS. And we believe this can assist significantly in the delivery of both local and national net zero targets. And we were discussing with Kofi earlier your 2030 target. I'm not sure what that encompasses exactly in terms of scopes, but this can be a very handy addition. Because we can produce different energy vectors, so we can produce electricity, we can produce hydrogen, we can produce a low carbon gas for the gas network, and we can produce liquid fuels. We have financial resilience, and we can meet different needs. And as mentioned, co-locating with a waste operator is highly efficient, and we reduce vehicle numbers and impacts. So those are some of the key benefits as we see it, but we believe this will become best available technology for the treatment of all residual waste in relatively short term. Thank you. Be delighted. Mark would be delighted to answer any question.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's much appreciated. Really interesting and fantastic to see new technology coming into our part of Berkshire. So questions. Anybody got any questions for the thing? Councillor Culver and then Councillor Vickers.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Very interesting. Could you just repeat for me, please, if I've missed this, exactly what kind of waste materials can go into this process and what can't? I think you said that the metals come out.
Yeah. So in terms of the way a MRF or materials recycling facility works, anything that they take out, we don't want really. So we would take the remnant, which tends to be the smaller pieces of card, wood, other organics. There's food waste mixed in, plastic films in particular. Obviously, the MRFs are looking to take out some of the bigger, harder plastics. And obviously, a lot has already been separated out through various, certainly the municipal waste. So it's that remnant which is commonly known as RDF, refuse derived fuel. Now, in an ideal world, of course, we should live in a waste-free society. There should be no waste at all. We could, as I said, we can take sustainable biomass, so short rotation willow or miscanthus, forestry waste, agricultural waste. And if in Theale we ran out of feedstock in a few years' time, because West Berkshire have done such a splendid job at waste reduction, we could move our modules elsewhere. So it's not like a waste incinerator, which is a fixed piece of infrastructure for 25 years, where you have to feed the beast for 25 years. We've got a lot of flexibility as to how we maintain and flex the facility over time.
So you wouldn't take trees like Drax does, for example?
No.
No. Good. There's lots of Mycanthus grass in my ward. One of the landowners here plants quite a lot of it because I think it's quite good for flood mitigation. So if you need any more Mycanthus, I can point you in their direction. I'm sure they'd be happy to give it to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's we have a somewhat different financial model where we have a biomass crop, but it can certainly work on that basis. Biomass is a controversial subject at the edges, if you like, but I mean, Drax have certainly not helped themselves, because I mean, I think they've been pinged a few times now. I continue to deny it, of course, but I think it's the scale of what they're doing is absolutely enormous. Our plant is sized to meet local need, so the import across the ocean of vast amounts of timber is not something that our technology will ever be applied to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Vickers.
Well, thank you for that. I must say, most of it went over my head.
Sorry.
It's pretty technical, but yeah, the idea that you can do such good with our waste products is really a great thing to hear. You mentioned, I mean, one thing I do, the carbon capture and storage obviously is always something I found quite alarming, that you're pumping stuff underground and heaven knows what's going to happen to it in the future. So you said you could what you do, basically you can hold it in your hand. You said, what did you mean by that? You basically meant
I'll press the button. Yeah, it's the carbon that we capture is in solid form. So the carbon is unlikely to degenerate over hundreds, if not thousands of years. So this is carbon capture in its real form. If you sequester it into the soil, again, it won't degenerate. It'll help soil fertility. Farming communities across Europe, not just in the UK, are suffering from real problems on hydrocarbon depletion because of overuse of the land, forcing it to grow through different types of fertilizers and things. So the carbon is not only captured, but it does some good at the same time as counting as sequestration. But we don't believe we think it's an optimistic view that somebody's going to find a void in certain rock strata and fill it with carbon dioxide that's going to stay there for very long. We'd prefer to actually have the solid form. So
that's quite alarming. So I mean, obviously this is the best way to treat our waste, but is the drawback it's expensive? It demands a lot of investment. Is that the main drawback?
Not really, actually. The next step that we're currently doing, which is the hydrogen phase, is probably one of the most expensive aspects of the technology. But we're in the process of developing and looking at a different type of hydrogen conversion process that will actually help reduce costs, both capital costs and energy usage as well. The big problem at the moment is that most people are looking to electrolysis to do the job of the final stage of hydrogen production, but electrolysis is not actually cost effective currently. I can't see it ultimately becoming hugely cost effective. and it needs a huge amount of water, which in many countries is just not a sustainable route. So there are better ways coming through. We're in an exciting part of the generation of the world. New technologies are coming through at varying speeds. The core technology, I'm pleased to say, we've been working on this for 26 years now, just over. We have the scars to prove it, and they say it was character forming for me, but I kind of liked all the flaws I had previously, being honest. But the world has got to the point now where it's ready for these other solutions. The commercial structuring was such that people already had established business models, so they didn't want to necessarily embrace the new technologies, and it would have been perhaps a threat at that time to their existing businesses. Whereas now we are looking to partner with those who do have the waste streams. We're not, whereas they've got a cost center at the moment for the removal or the transportation or disposal of waste in whichever way they choose. We can turn that into a profit center and work with them on a joint venture operation, because the technology is quite complicated. It's very simple in its principle, but a partnership is how we see getting into the market and helping those companies who are already controlling the waste industries to actually turn it into a profit center as well.
So just on the economics, it's worth considering the landfill tax was effectively the first environmental tax introduced in the UK, and it's been highly effective. It's been increased every year. It's been highly effective in driving away waste that can decompose away from landfills, and that's pushed it more towards the incineration route. So incineration will come under pressure when, in financial terms, in 2028, when it comes, and it's going to add about £40 a tonne to the cost. So landfill tax is going to be running up to about £120, £130 a tonne. The EU ETS is going to, also the UK ETS is going to be about £40 a tonne to waste going to incineration. So that all helps our economics, because we can effectively, we don't have any of those costs because we're not emitting carbon, we're drawing down carbon. So the more carbon taxes there are in society, it will drive the right outcomes.
Marvellous. Thank you very much. Any other questions from around the room or online? Oh, Dave, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Sorry. I was just wondering, what's the capacity of that particular plant there? I mean, I couldn't do the maths on the 8,000 tons per unit quick enough.
Yeah, so it's round figure, Dave, is 812 to 96,000.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the other question I had has anyone in your organisation considered oversize from composting plants as an organic input?
Yes, Dave. When you say the oversize, you mean in terms of the material that hasn't decomposed back into soil and things at this stage, yeah?
Effectively, yeah. So there's a proportion of it which is sticks and pieces of wood and so on, and that are screened out in the composting process, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be an absolutely ideal feedstock for us to take and convert, much the same as forestry trimmings, etc.
Yes. Yeah. That's basically what it is. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Councillor Culver.
Thank you, Chairman. Just another question. I know you're seeking planning permission at the moment, but do you anticipate having any kind of agreement with the council about the supply of the so-called feedstock? Will there be any kind of relationship with the council about making sure there's sufficient supply for this facility?
We don't anticipate any agreement with the council. I mean, obviously the council's tied in with Veolia for a period of time. So generally we see our targets as being the commercial and industrial and construction and demolition markets. So they're generally run by private companies, generally quite small companies, often family businesses. And we are finding that they are extremely open to new technologies, and they're not tied into contracts. So certainly in the short term, until kind of municipal contracts start coming through, and we've got a proven technology through the commercial and industrial market, the kind of municipal markets will follow thereafter.
Okay, thank you.
Can I mention one thing which I didn't put in my presentation that I should have done? I've referenced this to the chair in email exchanges, is that we're also looking at, a bit like Veolia, we're looking at setting up a community benefits fund for all our installations. We have on our Great Blakenham site, we're working with the University of Suffolk, and they're about to issue the paper on our community benefits fund and how that works. But we can't, we're not promising a number on this scheme, but we're looking, it's probably going to be in the region of £50,000 per annum for community projects that deliver social and environmental benefits. So that's another thing we're working on. The other thing worth just on Great Blakenham, we're very excited. We're next door there to a logistics park, and we're now in discussions on a hydrogen refueling station right next to the site. And we have waste companies coming to us saying, can we provide you with feedstock? And we want to run our waste vehicles on the hydrogen that you produce, because they just love that. They just love that circular story.
Any other questions from around the table? No, cool. I did have one question, and it was just on so obviously, you know, carbon is seen as, it is a dirty word, and you talked about two different types of carbon. And I am a layperson when it comes to the science and technology side of these things, not going to lie. So when we talk about the carbon char and the carbon black, so they are both solid forms of carbon that's been captured and turned into a different byproduct, basically.
Yes, yes. So in terms of carbon's one of the building blocks of life. I mean, it's everywhere. So, you know, the climate change skeptics will go, what are you talking about? You know, we need CO2. Plants can't grow without CO2, and, you know, you lot are going to stop all the plants growing. But the reality is there's way too much CO2 in the atmosphere. That is what's driving climate change. And it's now an accepted fact. That is what's driving climate change. We've put it all up there mostly by burning fossil fuels, but also through deforestation and other changes that we've brought about in the natural world. So we've got to stop putting CO2 up there, and we've got to put the carbon in other places. So in terms of typical carbon capture, it's putting it back in the rocks where it comes. With us, we could stick all the solid carbon down a coal mine, if you like. You know, that's the equivalent. Stick it in the ground and capture it there long term. But we believe that the carbon has use as well, so you can get a double benefit out of it rather than it just going being put in a hole.
Cool. And that's the same for both the carbon black and the chars. They are both used in other, so it's a reuse element.
Yes, but it's likely that, you know, there are needs to develop markets in both areas with the amount of product we will be producing. So if you go and Google biochar, you'll find hundreds of thousands of research projects on the benefit of biochar, not only in agricultural soils, but in all sorts of materials. Carbon black, there's probably, it's much more widely used, but there's less kind of hype about it. But we expect all sorts of other uses We've just got some carbon black samples, which we're in discussions with a company called Imerys, who used to own English China Clays. They're one of the biggest mineral companies in the world. And they're going to do tests on the carbon black to see what different uses it can be put to. So there's significant number of options there, but we like the idea of it going into batteries because it's all part of that. It's all part of that energy cycle. So
this is the next generation batteries for EVs, etc. Because there's all sorts of. Basically, it's a very short step to take from carbon black into graphene and graphite, and a lot of the science and new tech are viewing graphite and graphene as some of the new wonder materials that are starting to open up all sorts of doorways in the electronics world. So, in particular.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, it's good. Sounds extremely interesting. Like I said, it's good to have it on our doorstep. So look forward to seeing how it progresses for sure. I'm sure we'll be in contact. So cool. Thank you very much. Cool. I'll just ask you to knock your microphone off. Thank you. Smashing. Thank you very much, both of you. That's brilliant stuff. Marvellous. In that case, we will now move on to item 6, which is achieving sustainability within the community. So I'll hand over to Nikki Coombe from Eco Friends West Berkshire to crack on. Thank you very much.
Right. Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me along today. It's been a welcome introduction. So just to give you an idea, if we could move on to the first slide, I'm just going to run through today a little bit about, if we get past the first slide, a little bit about me, so as a bit of an introduction to Eco Friends, plastic-free communities, which we're supporting, and our 2024 objectives and how I'm hoping that you might be able to help us. So next slide then, please. So my name is Nikki Coombe. I'm the chair of Eco Friends. I'm also on the Greenfest committee, which took place in Hampstead Norreys a few years ago now, but we're hoping to resurrect shortly and continue that. My background is I've had 20 odd years in financial services as project and program manager. So I'm used to organising things, but I left that a few years ago and I'm just a full-time property investor now, which gives me time to do the chairing of Eco Friends, which takes up, I must admit, the majority of my time. So next slide then, please. So who are Eco Friends? So we're entirely volunteer-led. We're a group of individuals who felt that we wanted to do something within the community which made a positive change and a positive impact. So what we wanted to do was have a look at, I suppose, communities and businesses that were reducing their single-use plastic, and that's where we felt that we would start at both Thatcham and Newbury, and then hopefully spread that beyond. So we thought we'd start small-ish with Thatcham and Newbury, and then go beyond and into the further West Berkshire. You'll see at the top there, we've got a couple of logos. So we were called the West Berkshire Sustainable Community, but nobody could remember it. So we changed our name to Eco Friends over the last year, which hopefully is far more catchier and people will actually remember us. So our second objective is to help the people of West Berkshire improve the circular economy by reducing our carbon emissions through the creation of an Eco Hub. And that's currently being created in the background of all the activities that we're doing. We're focusing on recycling. But because people don't know where they can recycle what. So obviously West Berkshire provide a recycling service, but there's obviously TerraCycle, there's individual people collecting things for charities, etc. So people don't know where they can recycle their items. So we're doing that as a search, but what we're also doing is suggesting that maybe they could repair it, or they could refill something, or reuse it, or reduce it, and then take them down that route. So that's something that we're doing in the background. I'm going to focus a little bit on the plastic-free communities and explain what those are. So the next slide, please. So here's a few stats, which I think are pretty shocking, actually. So 38 million plastic drink bottles are bought in the UK every day. And if we have a look at that, what we see there is that only half of those end up in landfill, which is incredible considering the pressure on recycling and reusing. I do find that quite a staggering figure. We do have less than 1% of the 2.5 billion coffee cups each year in the UK are recycled. So 1%, I mean, that because it's so difficult to recycle them. just another statistic there, plastic bags ferment in 100 to 300 years, depending on the thickness and size. Now, if you think about 300 years, it's almost impossible to, to actually picture that in your head. But if we go backwards in that, it would have to have been created in 1724 to have been degraded today. That's King George II was on the throne and the first piano hadn't even been invented. So that's how long ago it would have had to be created for it to have broken down today. And we know full well that that would then be a microplastic that we would still have in the ecosystem today. So this is why we decided to focus on plastics. Next slide then, please. So what does being plastic free actually mean for the community? So we wanted to reward those businesses and community groups who are doing the right thing. So we've signed up to the Plastic Free Communities Surfers Against Sewage Initiative. There are 912 of these communities in the UK as it stands. And what they try to do is ask individuals, businesses, communities around the world, around the country, to reduce things such as the plastic drinking bottles, disposable coffee cups, sachets, bathroom plastics, food packaging and takeaway containers, and reduce those. So if you could pop onto the next slide then, please. In doing so, they've given us 5 objectives, and this is what everyone gets to become a plastic-free community. So to put local governance in place. So that's to actually get our Newbury Town Council, Thatcham Town Councils on board, which we have, thankfully, and they sit on our steering group, which is fantastic. To sign up a number of champions. So those are small businesses. Those that are bigger than small, which is defined by sort of the volume of people and the size of the business, where there's more chains or franchise, etc., become community allies, and we need to sign a number of those up as well. So over 30 allies, over 20 champions. We need to run a couple of events, at least 2 events a year. We've actually run more than that, but we just want to get our visibility out there. But so we've done that for Thatcham, and we actually achieved accreditation last week, which is fantastic, which we're really pleased about. For Newbury, we're almost there. We just need to get one item through the Newbury Town Council Policy and Resources Committee, I believe, to formally have that minuted, and then we're done for Newbury, which is absolutely fantastic as well. So we're really pleased with that. To date, our champions and allies have taken out 108,252 pieces of reusable plastic every single year, and I think that's pretty impressive. Just from getting them to reduce 3 items, and obviously the volume of those throughout the year. We've got some quite fantastic champions and allies on board. As I mentioned, we've got quite a number of them there, but the Corn Exchange, the Watermill, Gardner Leader, Howden Insurance, Shaw House, West Berkshire Museum, some well-known businesses in the local area. Next slide then, please. So our 2024 objectives. So we've got 5 objectives. Here's 3 of them. So we increase our visibility. So one of those was changing our name to something that hopefully people can remember. To get our name in brochures such as the Corn Exchange, and we've advertised in the Thatcham Town Council Guide, and we've had Howden sponsor that. We've undertaken a mass unwrap in the Co-op Thatcham, which was really, really successful. We had sort of quite a large amount of waste handed over, which people just didn't feel that they needed. So that's gone back to the Co-op with a tally, and it's also gone back to Surfers Against Sewage so that they can continue to lobby the government with the volume, and obviously large businesses with the volume of single-use plastics that people deem unnecessary. We've also been to a number of networking groups to spread the word and get our faces known. We've completed a Newbury Town Council plastic-free audit that's currently being reviewed, and it's been very well received by the Climate Emergency Committee in Newbury Town Council, and it's basically listed. We visited for an hour or so, myself and Jenny Kirby, who's also on our committee, and we documented that, and we just gave a few recommendations for items to be taken forward. So hopefully those will be, and we'll see the plastic reduced there. We've also seen a events charter adopted by Thatcham Town Council, and that is in effect, I will talk about it a bit more in detail later. That's in effect a charter that requests any events, any attendees at events, any stall holders to in effect adhere to a plastic-free charter and reduce the items that I mentioned below, plastic bottles, encourage reuse, etc., etc. One of our objectives was to obtain plastic-free accreditation. As I mentioned, we've already done that for Thatcham, and we're nearly there for Newbury, which is great. Support our plastic-free champions and allies. So I now do a Facebook post every Tuesday called Champion Tuesday, sorry, and that also includes our allies. And we're really celebrating what they've done, how they're moving forward, and really just telling the people that are on our Facebook group to support these small businesses who need all the help, you know, we can provide them, and that we really want to shout about all the good they're doing with regards to the environment and reducing their single-use plastics. Next slide then, please. The fourth objective is to lobby for single-use plastic alternatives. So this is with regards to the analogy of, you know, if the bath's overflowing, it's stopping the taps and not just mopping up the water afterwards. So that's what we're trying to do. Encourage use of the water refill app, encourage small businesses or big businesses around Thatcham and Newbury, specifically initially to adopt the water refill app and have refill stations. Gumdrop. Now we do have a Gumdrop in Newbury train station at the moment, and it's to further that, to encourage businesses to sponsor the Gumdrop initiative. Each one of those little Gumdrop pockets, which captures the gum, which stops it going on the floor and stops it having to be cleaned up by the council, is made of plastic, made of gum, which is of course made of plastic. So I mean, it's a fantastic reuse and a fantastic initiative. So we really like to push for that. Reusable cups. Now the cup image I've got there is from Plastic Free Overton, which is in Hampshire. They actually provide those cups to small businesses and around the area. And if someone doesn't have their own reusable cup, they can buy it on a deposit return scheme, the Overton cup, and return it. And that will then get washed and sent out again. So I think that's a fantastic way to just reintroduce that reuse and mean that people don't have to carry something around, but of course they do have to return it on a deposit return. Encourage owners of businesses customers to bring their own cups, bottles, containers to businesses. There are a number of businesses around Thatcham and Newbury that will accept their own containers, but I don't think people know about it necessarily unless they come along. Cook and Butcher, for example, they absolutely will encourage that. And there's a number of other small businesses that will encourage that and will refill. So what we'd like to do is go out to takeaways and the like, and encourage that and provide a poster for them on the front of their business, and obviously an electronic one as well to put on their websites. We'd also like to encourage community reuse schemes such as plant pot exchange. So, you know, encourage garden projects and what's the word? Gone. Where basically we can have areas where people can drop off plastic pots, maybe in a garden centre, so then pick up whatever they want for free. You know, so people would actually reuse those, and there's a number of other schemes that we could do that rather than going directly into landfill unnecessarily. Moving on to the next slide then, please. A few others. So drain art is something we're looking into. This is a really fun activity. So in effect, this is encouraging, so we'd get obviously someone to draw these out properly, and we've got someone who's actually offered, along with City Arts, to provide some artwork around drains, and it basically points out to people that the sea starts here. Please don't drop things down the drains. Please make sure it's almost encouraging a litter-free environment as well. And I've also got there a litter picking lockbox, which sort of goes hand in hand with that message to a certain extent. I believe in some councils you can actually get a key code to a lockbox and pick out some bags and the rings that you can get the bags and some litter pickers, so that if you want to go for a walk or you want to do some activity, you can go and pick up those items, obviously put them back once you're finished, and really create that mess-free environment. And the other one item I've added there was using local service areas as recycling hubs. So I've got a picture of Thatcham Library there, which I know there's some work going on there at the moment, or plans, to use those maybe as recycling hubs. So as I mentioned with the eco hub that we're planning to do, which I'll talk a bit later on, you know, we're finding that as we're collecting information in, I've got a huge spreadsheet of where we can put, you know, recycled items, which is fantastic because they do exist, but people aren't going to do that. They're not going to go to various areas. And of course, they're going to probably drive to get there, which isn't really the aim of it. So, you know, I think it would be a great idea. Obviously, we would need council backing for that, to have those as recycling hubs where we can basically one stop. You can recycle a load of items that you wouldn't normally do. Next slide then, please. And the fifth one is the creation of the Eco Hub. So this is a creation of website that focuses on the four main areas responsible for a quarter of the individual's carbon footprint each. So it will focus on its food waste and its packaging, energy consumption, transport, and then everything else, because that's another quarter. And we're centering on recycling, as I mentioned, and directing people using that recycling as to how they can then reduce the item that's then going to recycling through curbside collections, recycling centres, TerraCycle, blister packs, you know, charity recycling collections, and just listing those off, then also how you can refill, repair, and therefore reduce. That's work in progress. I'm hoping to get this done by the end of the year, but there's a lot of information that goes on that website. Next slide then, please. So basically, I was just after your help, if we could. If there's anything else, I'm happy to have conversations around this in more detail with anybody. But whether or not West Berkshire Council would consider adopting the charter that we've already mentioned, that Thatcham Town Council have adopted and Hampstead Norreys Candlelit Market have adopted. And I'm also approaching other event organisers as well, such as the Corn Exchange, where in effect we're asking people not to bring or use disposable coffee cups, plastic bags, you know, plastic cutlery, etc., which is of course banned by law now, but making sure that they don't. What Thatcham Town Council have done is in effect suggested that they don't do it, so they've asked them to reduce this year, and next year they're going to be a ban on it. So they're sort of easing that in. Consider instructing a single-use plastic audit. As I mentioned, we've done one at Newbury Town Council. It's been very well received. Thatcham Town Council have asked for one to be scheduled, so we're currently in discussions with them. And I've also done one for Hampstead Norreys Candlelit Market and for their shop as well, which was completed. They're adopting some of those items there. Next slide then, please. And also to support the introduction of the items that I mentioned above. So, you know, water refill stations and app promotion, the gumdrop. I don't know whether there will be any highways restrictions on that. The funding is less than £200 per business, so it's not a huge amount. And I think the benefit of clearing up our streets would be incredible. So to help us lobby businesses for that funding. Deposit return schemes, that we'd like to introduce, such as the Overton Cup. Allow West Berkshire Council logo on some of our container posters, if that's possible. Support the spreading the message to the businesses, community groups, schools, event spaces through the introduction and communication channels to be able to do that. Support any deposit return schemes that we could put in place. And then I know this is very much direct, but increase the volume of recycling bins in public spaces, please, so that we do get at least any of that mopping up of the plastics straight into the bins and not left on curbsides and in our parks and green spaces, and increase the plastics taken by curbside recycling, which I know that is a hot topic. And if everyone I speak to says, why can't we recycle all our plastics curbside? Next slide then, please. And then any questions?
Thank you very much, Nikki, for that. That's really
Never didn't
interesting.
rattle through it too fast.
No, it's good. I will just, I think it's worth looping you in with Jenny Graham, who's our Environment Delivery Manager, who may or may not be on the line now, because I know that we're here in the office, there's some refillable activities that have been trialled and things like that. So I think definitely worth looking at how we can bring some of that in, because obviously the museum and Shaw House are also West Berkshire Council assets. So there's pockets of it. So actually, how can we bring that together and expand that or look to expand that potentially across all of our assets and our buildings and our areas that we operate out of as a council? Because I think it's really important that as a council we have an efficient operation, as well as asking residents to join us on that journey. So
absolutely.
If you haven't if you don't know Jenny already, I will certainly loop you folks in, because I think it's there's definitely bits going on in that realm already.
Yes.
So it's just, I think, looping you in on that would be
Perfect,
good
thank
as well.
you. Yeah, definitely.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Wow. What a set of objectives.
I know,
there are
they're
there.
small, aren't they?
I can't imagine your spreadsheets.
They're huge,
Plan all of
absolutely
this,
huge,
but,
yeah.
I mean, amazing, well done.
Thank you.
Some of the things that you've mentioned, takeaway packaging. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The number of tubs, plastic tubs, and
Absolutely.
I try my best to reuse them for all
Yeah.
sorts of different
Yeah.
reasons, but they don't clean very well, I have to say.
No.
So then you can't use them for food, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I mean, who resolves that? If could we feed them into an incinerator? I don't know. Sorry, just
As long as you don't, sorry, microphone, as long as you don't call us an incinerator.
No.
Sorry. I couldn't remember that long.
Yeah.
word, what it's
Yeah.
called, But yes, the wonderful operation that
Yeah,
you
no.
gentlemen have.
I mean, Dave would probably be able to shed some light on this. My understanding, slightly limited, but I understand the difficulty with recycling plastics is, first of all, it's time consuming to segregate them out, and that involves a cost. Secondly, the market is unpredictable. What might be in demand one week and give you a value return may not be a week, but it could be fairly shortly after. That same product has a negative value or just not sufficient to cover the cost of the recycling. Am I correct here, Dave?
Yeah, you're exactly correct. Yeah, absolutely. And a good example of it was through 2023. So the PET market, so your average Coke bottle, for example, there was no market. It completely bombed. So we weren't able to sell any of our PET because of the same market conditions you're discussing. Yeah.
But what I was finding fascinating here was because there's two aspects in my understanding to the plastic problem. If you ignore the debate about plastic is a wonderful material in actual fact, and it's only the way it's discarded that's now caused the problems. But in real terms, what you are doing, and I was very impressed with, is you're focusing on trying to prevent the ongoing battle of plastic, which is a continuous stream that just overwhelms everything.
Yeah.
The second part of that is the plastic we've got, which is hundreds and thousands of tons globally. It's floating in our oceans. Now, the technology we have really, and unless it's something like PVC, which maybe gives us a bit of a problem, slightly more of a problem because of cleaning the chlorides out of gas streams. But other than that, we can literally take any plastic, and the energy content within plastics is a great boost for the gas streams, and it helps give bonuses down the line. So our attitude has always been that if it can't be recycled in a viable manner, we can help deal with the problem that we've already got. And it's a viable, practical solution because we don't need to stream. The problem that I tend to find, and I find if I'm not careful, I tread over a line here, is that the word of recycling plastics seems to be a dirty word as far as we're concerned. If we say, look, we can do all these wonderful things with plastics, it doesn't count. It's like when Mike was showing earlier, the difference in the biogenic carbon and the fraction of the carbon which doesn't count for such a value because it's come from plastic or some kind of originally fossil fuel. Well, that's still probably one of the major problems we have. Why is it the world wants to treat that separately rather than recognizing, if anything, you should get more of a bonus for trying to deal with that than the others? I'm just saying, just treat them all the same. Don't segregate, because it is a problem. It can be resolved, and at the moment, it's not encouraged to resolve it in the right way. Incinerators, burning it is the solution at the moment because there isn't a better and more practical solution that's viable at scale. In the UK, just on 2 waste streams only, if you look at the municipal waste arisings on domestic waste and commercial and industrial waste, it's something like 188,000 tons a day that we produce. We don't know what to do with today's waste, let alone tomorrow's. And these new technologies will help, but they need the encouragement through regulation, not needing huge subsidies or anything like that, but the encouragement not to be penalised on the things that when you actually sit down and rationalise, actually it makes a lot of sense to do that. If you can't recycle it because it's not right at this moment, then put it into something along this lines of technology.
Is it a related point? Because I was going to take some other questions. Go.
I've got a question that's separate.
Okay, cool. I'll come back to you then in that case.
I haven't finished, sorry. So you, so one of my other bugbears is water bottles.
Yeah.
Hence why I've always got one of these
Yeah,
with me.
absolutely.
And linked in with your litter picking. So I'm responsible for litter picking. I'm over in Tilehurst.
Okay.
So I set up Tilehurst litter pickers, and tomorrow actually I'm doing one with the school. So Little Heath
great.
School, I'm going in, and as part of their sort of eco program, this is the second one that we've done. It's really interesting to see though that generation, so that sort of secondary school, think it is totally okay, some of them, to buy water in bottles, drink half of it, and then leave it somewhere for someone else to pick up. So my point being, and I don't want to add to your spreadsheet, but I didn't see schools mentioned specifically. So an education piece in particular for schools. I find the primary schools, they are they're getting something right in the syllabus and the curriculum with the younger children. But we still have this teenage, shall I say, and I shall be vilified by everybody for mentioning that, but I see that evidence at that age. Something becomes a disconnect about what is the damage that I'm doing here potentially. I guess it's not cool to carry your bottle about and things like that, but so
you can get some cool bottles, can't
well,
you?
you absolutely can, and I've got too many at home, so that's just one of them. I think that's another issue actually.
We won't talk about that issue.
But when you want to come to the east, please come and speak to me.
Yeah, will do.
Tilehurst.
Yeah.
I think Tilehurst Parish Council would be really interested. And you know, if you wanted to come and just talk at one of the parish council meetings to begin with, we always have an open forum at the beginning. So you know, I'm sure we could arrange that for you.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm ready in the east, even if nobody else is.
Just to respond to that, we have spoken to primary schools. So we've been to Parsons Down recently and done an assembly there, which was fantastic, and they really welcomed it. So I agree at a primary school level, you know, they sort of get it, and then there's some sort of convert between that and secondary school where everyone gets really wasteful. It's not cool to carry a drinking bottle, but you can get some cool drinking bottles that, you know, maybe it should be pitched at that level. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
I've got Councillor Vickers next, and I've got Dave from Veolia, then Mike, and then Councillor Culver. So Councillor Vickers, over to you.
That's really great that you've come along, Nikki.
Thank you, Martha.
And thanks for, you know, your links with Newbury Town Council, and hopefully we can go forward there. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit overwhelming, all the things you've got to think about, because one thing leads to another. And it's interesting, you know, with the comments about what to do with plastic here, because I think a lot of people think the recycling thing, they feel really good. I can get my bottle, but then I recycle it, so that's okay. But, you know, I mean, that's been something we're hearing more of about the market, and about, you know, you stick your plastic film in something in Tesco, and then you hear that they're just dumping it somewhere, you know? So it's all a bit, I don't know, it's a bit disingenuous really about the recycling thing. So it's all about reducing or doing something else with it. So I mean, there's masses to do. I mean, big business is the problem, isn't it, surely? I mean, your Tesco and your thing, and I know the government's supposed to be down the line sort of penalising business for various things. I don't know where that's going, but we're hearing about, you know, through our waste team, that there's new stuff coming through that'll make it more difficult for business, or make it costly for businesses, that they will have to deal with their plastic bits and so you know, hopefully that will be something in the future. I was just a specific thing about the plant pots. I mean, it would be great, because I mean, particularly this time of the year when people are going and buying stuff from garden centres, it would be great if you could take your plant pots back, clean them, take them back. I mean, I've got a pile still sitting. I don't like chucking them, so I just have this endless pile. And where people request plant pots for something, very quickly the sign goes up saying no more. You know, anybody that's planting something. So there's loads of plant pots sitting in people's gardens or maybe getting chucked. If garden centres would just take them back and reuse them.
I agree. Yeah.
You
and
know, I mean,
yeah.
that
You
would
almost
be
want a
great if
deposit
you
return scheme with that, don't you? I mean, there's so many opportunities with deposit return schemes, I think, where if you make something that's built to last rather than something that's flimsy,
Yeah.
and you get it back, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what we could
Yeah.
do work with garden centres and
Yeah.
just say, could you, even if one did this, it would actually sort of, I'm sure people would appreciate that because they don't like to have these things just
No,
be
exactly.
sitting around. And I love the city arts things,
Yeah.
and getting posters and making arts
Absolutely.
projects.
Yeah,
That's
it'd be
brilliant.
great. Yeah,
So
thank you.
Thanks for all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Allotments was the word I was looking for earlier. So that was the word. I was like, it's gone completely. Yeah.
It's back. It's
It's
good.
back,
It's good to
it's
know it's back. Dave, over to you.
Yeah, sure. Just a very quick question. Well, it's not a question, it's a request actually. Would you be able to come to Padworth to do your single-use plastic audits?
Absolutely. Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd be really interested to have a look at the Padworth site as a whole, offices, and we've got offices within the processing facilities as well, just to see what we could do on site, really.
Would love to. Thank you. Yes, we'd love to, David.
Yeah,
Does that count the stuff that's out the back as well in those big green buildings, Dave?
yeah.
1, 2.
That's a big count. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mike, you had a question.
Yeah, congratulations. Absolutely fantastic what you're doing. Seems like a force of nature to me. I think the reduction thing is absolutely essential. We've got to stop just producing all this stuff and through that throwaway culture. One particular bugbear I have is there's a well-known chocolate business called Ferrero Rocher.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if anybody's been tempted to buy their product, but you have to buy. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's another view.
I think we have to be careful not to be sued. So
these huge plastic trays that they come in.
Yeah.
And you mentioned TerraCycle a couple of times, and they are recyclable through TerraCycle.
Yeah.
But who is ever going to send one back or drive? By the time you drive to a TerraCycle depot, you've emitted more carbon than you're going to save by going there.
Yeah.
I think it's absolute greenwash, personally. I was a bit shocked to see that they're actually linked with, they're officially linked with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. But I wrote to Ferrero Rocher and saying, well, you say this is recyclable. How many have been recycled? And they refused to answer. So something that is recyclable doesn't mean that it's being recycled. And I think that's an education that we need to put out there to people. So it's another one for your spreadsheet.
Thank you.
But well done. Fantastic.
Thank you.
It's about enabling, isn't it? And I think that's the key. Giving people the opportunity to do the right thing. And like you said, getting in a car to drive it to a centre is probably not going to attract that desire. Councillor Culver.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. Extremely interesting and very welcome project that you're involved in there. The events charter is very interesting. I'll give a bit of thought to how I might be able to help out with that. We've got a village fair called the Sheep Fair in East Ilsley, which is returning this June. So quite possibly we could do an events charter around that, like you did with the candlelit market in Hampstead Norreys. I've mentioned before, I think in this forum and others, that I'm quite frustrated about the fact that you can take some forms of plastic to the tip, but you can't put them at the roadside. So I will take margarine tubs, ice cream tubs, etc. to the tip periodically. But I have noticed that some of my neighbours just put them in the curbside recycling bin and they get taken anyway. So I wonder whether me driving to the tip periodically with that stuff is a good idea, or whether I should just chuck it into the green bin like everybody else does. So I shall leave that hanging. Poor Kofi, I think, has probably heard me mention this several times. But it would be useful to know from officers, actually. I think you were doing the plastic collection at the recycling centres to see what appetite there was for recycling that kind of material. So it'd be good to get an idea from you about how successful that's been and whether it is something we can do at the curbside in the future. you've obviously been to the town councils, and Councillor Stewart mentioned Tilehurst Council. It might also be worth going to Hungerford Town Council and some of the parish councils as well to see if they'd like to get involved. Dobbies in Hungerford, they recycle plant pots and they also recycle compost bags, which is good because that's another issue, because obviously you can take your soft plastics to supermarkets, but you can't do anything with the big compost bags, but you can do that at Dobbies. And what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh yeah, the blister packs. I'd be interested to know where you can take blister packs, because I used to take mine to Superdrug and then they closed. So if there's anywhere else you can take them, I'd be very interested to know.
GKG Vets.
To who, sorry?
GKG Vets.
GKG Vets, okay.
There's one in Washcommon and there's one in Thatcham. They collect blister packs for obviously animals, but they will also take human blister packs as well.
Brilliant, because I know a lot of people who've got bags that they never got to Superdrug before it closed. Thank you for that.
Welcome. Cool. Thank you. Daniel, I don't know if you want to just answer Councillor Culver's question on the mini recycling centres.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. Hi, Councillor Culver. So we introduced the pots, tubs and trays at our 2 recycling centres and a couple of our mini recycling centres kind of over the last couple of years. And we're with the idea of seeing how it goes with the market. And so we were in discussions with David Viola about bringing it to the curbside when we're able to. So we're looking at it. It also forms part of the government's simple recycling plan, as other materials we're going to have to collect in the future. We'll hopefully have some good news on that soon.
Right.
Yeah, but for now, if you can, continue making the trips to the recycling centres, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Daniel. Good. Councillor Carter.
Oh, hi there, Stuart. Thanks a lot. Yeah, just a quick word for Ali's recycling in the local community, which is present in, I can't remember all the places it's in West Berkshire. Certainly we've got it in Mortimer. So she takes a bunch of TerraCycle goods through her own goodness of her heart, and she's got an army of volunteers. So that is one other thing that's in place. And separately, I have had a few people ask me about whether we could have a mini recycling centre in our village, which is probably more of a parish council thing. But as Daniel says, perhaps there's a trade-off between that and how soon the government doorstep collection scheme comes in.
Thank you. Marvellous. Thank you for that, Nick. Any other questions from around the room before we move on to the next item? No. Marvellous. Thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, welcome to stay for the final bits.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. In that case, we'll move on to item 7, which is West Berks Council Environment Updates. So I'll hand over to Jenny Graham.
Thank you, Stuart, and good evening, everybody. I do have some updates for you. I will probably whiz through them fairly quickly because I know you've all been in this meeting for quite a while. I will share my screen because I have got some slides to share with you. Is that working? Great, thank you. So I'm hoping that I will make sure that these slides are available for anybody to refer to them afterwards, probably on the council's Green Hub. We will make sure that they're there. So I just wanted to do a really quick update and raise some further awareness of the car club. It is currently operating in the Newbury Town Centre area. But there is desire for it to operate in other areas. So just a little update around Newbury. There will soon be a new location for another car club vehicle, and that will be to the south side of Newbury Railway Station. We are also very much aware that the charge point in the Kennet Centre car park is not operating at the moment, and we're working hard to get that get a new charge point in there so that we can again have an electric vehicle on our car club fleet, and there will be an electric vehicle in there as soon as we can. So just wanted to highlight that really and let you know that we're still working on those areas and still keen to expand with Enterprise being our car club operator. There's a few energy bits of information that I wanted to share. There is a Village Halls and Community Buildings grant scheme that is coming very soon, and I wanted to highlight this because we have been talking about it for a little while, and I didn't want people to think that they've missed it or they're late. It hasn't been launched yet, so nobody's missed anything. It is coming, and there we've got a number of channels that we will use to let people know that that is launched. So that is coming very soon. I've listed also on this slide, there are 3 schemes currently available to help residents in West Berkshire, well, and beyond, with energy efficiency. So there's the Home Upgrade Grant, HUG, and this is the second round of this scheme. There is a page on our West Berkshire Council website that will give all the information for that. There's also Eco4 and the Great British Insulation Scheme, and they are designed to work together. And I've got links there, and once these slides become available, you'll be able to use the links for information on those, and we will also put a page on our website for those. So there are schemes there, and if there's any confusion, we don't mind as a team helping people out to point them in the right direction. A quick update because last time, or since we last met, we have had the introduction of the biodiversity net gain regulations for large sites, large planning sites that came into force on the 12th of February. From April, it will include other sites as well. So this is now up and running, and we have put a web page up all about biodiversity net gain and the natural environment. So if you search for that, we hope that that web page will help people to understand what's going on, the different duties on the council, what it means for planning applications, and what we're doing going forward. One of the things we are doing is we will soon, probably in the next couple of months, having a call for sites, so that if anybody has got land that they want actually to look at habitat creation on, that could be useful for achieving biodiversity net gain, then that will be the first step, just an expression of interest, and we can look at those parcels of land and see what can be done across West Berkshire to ensure that this investment is actually kept within the district, and it's our habitats that are benefiting. I also just wanted to mention, because it links to a presentation that was given a few meetings ago about the sustainability assessment tool that the council is currently piloting internally. So schemes, projects, events, we have got a new tool to try and assess those and ensure that we're thinking about all the different ways in which they contribute to sustainability or could contribute to sustainability. I've just on the slide put the sort of assessment wheel, the dashboard that we use in the tool to remind you in case you were around for the initial presentation a few meetings ago. So we're entering into a pilot phase of this, which is really exciting, and we hope that if we can get to grips with this tool and start implementing it, then maybe it might be useful for our parish and town councils to also look at it, but we're in a period of testing it and learning about applying it to our events, schemes and projects, and we can report back at a future meeting. Another plug that I'd like to do, if you have got connections with your town and parish councils, if they're not engaging with our climate forum that we put on for town and parish councils, and you think that there's a need or some interest, then please point them to the Green Hub, where they will find all the information for that. We meet about every 6 weeks. We've got a varied agenda, and people generally find that really helpful. So a little plug for that. The next meeting is the 24th of April. I've mentioned the Green Hub a number of times already, just to flag that we do try and put all our information that we think is going to be useful for residents, businesses, communities in that area of our website. And one last plug for the newsletter that comes out monthly. Last Thursday of every month, there will be a newsletter, and you can sign up to that if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Any questions for Jenny? Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, the car club, it's good to hear that we're trying to expand that. The race course, I mean, they were meant to have be promoting a car club over there, but I don't know how that's going. I don't think they actually sort of did possibly what they were promised they would do. I mean, is there much activity as regards the car club over in that direction? Do you know anything about that?
Thanks for raising that. I think that I had an email, I saw an email come in today just about that very point. So I'll be looking at that with Alec from the Transport Policy team, and we can connect with the racecourse and make sure that actually what was planned is actually then delivered for the residents of the racecourse. So thanks for raising it.
Thank you, Jenny. And the Village Hall and Community Buildings grant, that's about sustainability, is it? It's about helping them.
It's around energy efficiency, yeah, and ways in which those community facilities can be supported in a sustainable way. So there's a list of things that will be eligible for funding, but we are using money from the Rural England Prosperity Fund. So there are some restrictions on locations of buildings, and that would be the first thing that I would say to anybody interested. And the first thing in the guidance will be make sure your area is eligible. But yeah, it's around energy efficiency. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Thank you very much for the presentation. Over to Daniel now for item 8, which is waste updates.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just share my screen. Great. Have you got that okay?
Yes, thanks.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yep. So starting off with a few weekends ago, we undertook our 4th giveaway of our soil conditioner that we make at Padworth, or that Dave and his team make at Padworth, for all the food and garden waste that we collect. Kind of also supporting the food waste action week that also took place last week. Yeah, it was our biggest event so far. We had over 500 visitors who collected just over 50 tonnes of soil conditioner. It's a great example of the circular economy with the food and garden waste that we collect, turn back and give them back to residents for use in their gardens and allotments. And yeah, we'll be planning another event with Veolia later in the year. Secondly, so at the moment, a lot of you will know it's the Great British Spring Clean at the moment, an event that we love to support every year. So far, I think we've got 16 groups that we're lending litter picking equipment out to, and many more who we've given sacks, and we're collecting the litter that they collect. It's a service we do provide all year round, lending out the equipment. We haven't quite got to one of the lockers yet, but it's something that we're interested in, and we'll be in touch with Nikki Yank and her colleagues to see if we can work together on that and many other aspects that they're doing over at Eco Friends. We undertook a team litter pick as well on the 13th of March in the district, getting the team out and about as well, getting our hands dirty. So yeah, if there's any community groups out there who do want equipment to litter pick, do get in touch with us within the waste team. We're always happy to support, and we thank everybody who gets out there to pick up litter that really shouldn't be there in the first place. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's taking part. We've got a change to our service coming up at the beginning of April. So our opening hours at our recycling centres are going to change from the 1st of April, following the consultation that took place towards the end of last year, early this year. So our weekday opening hours at both of our recycling centres, the one at Newtown Road in Newbury and Padworth, will go to 11 till 6 weekdays. Weekends will stay the same, as well as bank holidays, including Easter Monday. That will still be open 9 till 6. You still need to make an appointment to visit the site, so the system is up and ready with those changes. So you shouldn't experience any issues in turning up at the wrong time if you've got an appointment. And yeah, just to say that we're making those changes just to try and be more efficient, as we know the sites aren't being fully utilised, and it does bring a saving, which is I think greatly appreciated at the moment. And then the last one for me is Easter, obviously coming up quite quick and early this year. Took me by surprise at the weekend. It's next weekend or this weekend. So our collection days are unchanged. So we're collecting as normal on Good Friday and Easter Monday. So you don't need to worry about a change of collection day. And yeah, just an encouragement as always to recycle your cardboard and any food waste you do have from home. We can pick that up at the curbside as part of our recycling services. As mentioned earlier, plastic trays, if you can please take those to our recycling centres and recycle them there. And foil and plastic film isn't something we can collect at the moment as part of our recycling service. So please say discard those in the black bin unless there are any other outlets out there that Nikki and her friends and Eco Friends and Everos are promoting. And always love food, hate waste, have some great tips on what you can do with your Easter leftovers. And we'll be sharing that as well over the Easter period on our social media platforms. And that was it from me.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Any questions for Daniel? No. Cool. Okay. Thank you very much. In that case, that takes us on to item 9, which is any other business. Anything online? No. Anything around the table? No. Cool. Okay. And that takes us to item 10. Which is date of the next meeting. So normally we have it on the last Monday of the month, the last working day, the last Monday of the month. Sorry, you did explain this to me, and I still get it wrong. Which would mean it would be Monday the 27th, but that's a bank holiday. So the proposal is we either move it to the 29th of May, which is the Wednesday, or we bring it forward to Monday the 20th. I mean, I'm happy to leave it on the 20th. I don't know if anyone else has got any strong feelings on that. No. Okay. Should we leave it at the 20th then, please, folks? Cool. Thank you very much. And that concludes our business for this evening. I just want to say thank you very much to everyone that's presented this evening. It's been a real nice mix of complementary topics, actually, and I think it's kind of come together nicely. And it's great to hear our kind of guests involved in the discussion and sharing ideas around, which is really fantastic. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to everyone that's come along and to our hosts this evening, Zoom hosts this evening, and our clerk. Thank you very much. And officers and those members of the public that have come along and presented and watched. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, Dave. Thank you.